Hey, what's up? It's Nathan here with the BTCcourse.com, and in this video we're going to do a tutorial on Sparrow Wallet. Now, Sparrow Wallet is definitely my favorite Bitcoin wallet to use, and it has a bunch of different features on it, and I'm going to explain some of them real quick, and we'll cover some of them in this video, but I might have some other videos with more advanced tutorials, so be on the lookout for those. But it supports single sig and multi-sig wallets. It lets you connect to public servers or Bitcoin Core or private Electrum server, so you can use your own node with Sparrow Wallet. It supports the partially signed Bitcoin transactions, so you could share different transactions, like you sign a piece of it and then you could send it over to somebody else and they could sign the other piece of the transaction. So if you have multi-sig set up, you could do sharing of transactions using that PSBT, partially signed Bitcoin transaction feature. It supports common hardware wallets, so Ledger, Trezor, ColdCard, all work on with Sparrow Wallet, and air-gapped modes as well. Full coin and fee control with comprehensive coin selection, so we'll cover some of that in this video. You can label all your transactions, inputs and outputs. Lightweight and multi-platform, so it works on Windows, it works on Apple products, it works on Linux, so it works all over the place. It also supports Paynyms, which we won't cover in this video, but we will in another. Built-in Tor, testnet, and several other features like Whirlpool and stuff like that. So there's a bunch of different options, and it's actually pretty easy to use too. It's not that overwhelming, which is very nice. So anyway, let's just go ahead and get into it. So this is what it'll look like when you first set it up. You should have like a blank screen here, and it might actually ask you during the setup process like what server you want to connect to. So there's different options. There's public servers right here, which if you don't have your own node, you're going to have to connect to a public server. And there's a few quality ones that Sparrow recommends you use, like Blockstream.info is a high quality server. Like they have Tor, they don't track or log any sort of transactions you're doing, so it's privacy based type of stuff. So, and I assume all the other ones are as well, but Blockstream is a quality brand, so if I'm going to public server, I select one of the Blockstream ones. But if you do have your own node or you're running Bitcoin Core, you could go ahead and connect to it up here. So I have my own node, so I'm going to use private Electrum, and then I can go ahead and click on test connection, and boom, I'm connected to the Bitcoin blockchain. So you need to be connected in order to send transactions. You could receive transactions offline. You wouldn't see them come in because you'd be offline, but in order to send transactions, you have to be online in order to connect to the blockchain and broadcast your transaction. So anyway, you probably have to set up your server first. So assuming you've done that, you should have a screen that looks something like this. And what we want to do is go to File and New Wallet, and we can go ahead and enter a name for this. So I'm going to do Demo Wallet and Create Wallet. So there are a few settings here. We have the policy type, so we have single signature and multi-sig. I'm only going to cover single sig in this video, but I have another video covering multi-sig, so if you're interested in that kind of configuration, check that out. Script type, there's legacy, which is the original, nested SegWit, which is the second oldest, and then we have native SegWit, which is most common, most used right now, and then we have Taproot, which is the new one. Like if you wanted to do ordinals, you would need to use the Taproot script type. But if you're not doing ordinals or know what you're doing, my recommendation right now on March 1st, 2023 is to go native SegWit. All the exchanges and wallets that I know of support native SegWit. Some of them don't interact with Taproot yet. So if you set up a Taproot wallet, you could mess things up if you're trying to transfer from an exchange to your wallet or from your wallet to an exchange. Some stuff might get a little funky. So be very careful choosing Taproot unless you're doing ordinals. Otherwise, recommendation is native SegWit because most everybody plays nicely with native SegWit. All right, and then we have descriptor. We don't want to change that unless you know what you're doing, in which case you're probably not watching this video if you know how to mess with this stuff. So coming on down here to key store. So we have 4 different options. Connected hardware wallet. This would be your Ledger or your Trezor, your signing device that you would connect to your Sparrow wallet. Now I'm going to have other videos on Ledger and Trezor and how to connect to Sparrow, so we won't cover that here. It's pretty self-explanatory. You just click this and connect it. It's not super complicated, but I have other videos for the hardware wallets. We have air-gapped hardware wallet. So this is like your ColdCard that you might have, and again, another video on that. New or imported software wallet, that's what we're going to set up in this video. So this would be considered a hot wallet because the keys are going to be stored on my computer. And my computer, of course, is connected to the internet, which means that it's kind of a hot wallet because my keys are on the same device that's connected to the internet. Whereas, a hardware wallet or an air-gapped wallet, they have an extra level or two of separation from the internet. So these are obviously more secure than having a hot wallet, but this is easy to set up and run with. And then we have XPub, which is a watch-only wallet, so you could only watch stuff come in or out of it, but you couldn't actually do the transactions to get stuff out of that wallet. So let's go ahead and go with new or imported wallet. And we have a couple options here: mnemonic words, Electrum, or master private key. We're going to go with the word selection here, and we can select between 24 and 12 words in order to create our hot wallet. I'm going to go ahead and use 12 words because that's only 12 words that I have to write down versus 24. So half as much time, but of course, more than likely, the more words you use, the more secure it will be. But I'm going to go ahead and do generate a new wallet. And what I want to do now is write down these 12 words and secure them safely someplace that's hopefully protected from flooding, fire, theft, etc. This is basically my username and password for my Bitcoin on the blockchain. So if anybody gets hold of these 12 words, they can plug them into any sort of wallet. So they could plug it into like Blue Wallet if they wanted to, and they could access my Bitcoin. So these 12 words are critically important to keep safe and secure and private. You don't want to put them on Google Drive or Dropbox or something like that where they might get compromised. Additionally, you could go ahead and add a passphrase, which is like another level of security and encryption. So if you do this option, then somebody would have to know all your 12 words and know your passphrase. But if for some reason you forget your passphrase, well, you're going to be screwed. You're going to not have access to your wallet. And the same is true for these words as well. If you lose these words, you won't have access to your wallet either. So that's just something to be mindful of. I know a lot of people write down their seed phrase, but then they'll try and memorize their passphrase, but then they forget it. So you don't want to be one of those people. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and leave passphrase blank, and I'm just going to take a picture of this actually because I'm going to delete this wallet as soon as I'm done with this video. And then what I want to do next is confirm my backup and then have these 12 words been written down. Next step, you'll need to re-enter them. So yes. Okay, so then go ahead and re-enter them. And once you're done with that, you should see valid checksum. So go ahead and click on create key store. And then you want to leave this to default. Don't try messing with it unless you know what you're doing. Import key store. All right, so here we go. My wallet is now set up. I could go ahead and view my seed. Like if oh shoot, I wrote it down and then I threw the piece of paper out. Then you can pop it back up if you need to. You could go ahead and give this a label if you want to. Since we only have one key store, it probably doesn't really matter that you label it, but if you have a multi-sig setup and you have multiple tabs here, you might want to label which one's which. Like you might want to be like, this is my ledger, this is my Trezor, this is my ColdCard, and so on. So that way you can maybe keep them a little straight. The fingerprint here is just a unique identifier for this particular key store. So it's something you might want to note down. It can help you between the label and the fingerprint. You can keep things organized. Derivation path, that's what we already selected. Don't mess with that. And then here's your XPub or ZPub. And so this is used to generate all of your wallet addresses. So you could use this information to generate, a billion different wallet addresses for this one wallet. And while you might not understand how you could do that right now, just know that this is information that should be kept, close hold. No one can get to your Bitcoin with this information. However, they could look up all of your wallet addresses if they have your XPub, and then they can see if you have a lot of Bitcoin or not. So it's something to keep private, but you don't need to keep it as secure as your seed phrase. So then I'm going to go ahead and click on apply, and then it asks us if we want to add a password to our wallet. Now this password is for our Sparrow Wallet file. So Sparrow is going to make a wallet file for us that we're going to save to our computer. And by adding this password here, it'll encrypt your wallet file with that password. So somebody would need your password in order to unencrypt your Sparrow Wallet file. So my recommendation would be to go ahead and add a password to your Sparrow wallet, so that way, that wallet file is encrypted. That way, if you put it on Google Drive or Dropbox or something like that, somebody would still need your password in order to get into your wallet. And this is especially true if you're doing a hot wallet like we have right here, where my seed phrase is actually stored within my wallet. So it's pretty much absolutely critical you put a password on your Sparrow wallet if you're using it as a hot wallet. So I'm going to go ahead and type in a password real quick. And so now our wallet is good to go, and we can go through this menu real quick. So transactions right here, this is a list of all the transactions we've had in our wallet. So Bitcoin coming in, Bitcoin going out. So we would see that right here, and we're about to do some transactions, so we'll have some information to look at in just a minute. Here's where I can go ahead and send Bitcoin, and we'll take a better look at this in a minute. Receive, we're about to receive, so we're going to go through this together. Addresses, so this is all the addresses that I can send to, and they're connected to my wallet. Again, these are generated from that XPub. So the XPub is what's used to generate the wallet addresses. So if somebody gets your XPub, they can identify all these wallet addresses, and there's billions that can be created. I can't quite remember the full number of wallet addresses, but I'm pretty sure it's in the billions. And then these are your change addresses. So if you do a transaction where you only send a certain amount of Bitcoin and some of it comes back to you, well, then it will wind up in these change addresses. And you'll see that as we send Bitcoin out of here, how that kind of functions if you're not familiar with change. We have UTXO, so we'll cover this as we get some Bitcoin in here, but this is how Bitcoin arrives in your wallet. It'll be stored as an unspent transaction output, or UTXO. So that's just like a chunk of Bitcoin, and you'll see it in action in just a minute here. And then we get to settings, which is where we just were. So in order to really dive into this tool, we need to get some Bitcoin in here. So what I want to do right now is send some Bitcoin to this wallet. So I need to go ahead and receive and get an address here. So I need to send some Bitcoin to this address. So I have my Strike wallet loaded up right here, and I'm just going to send some money to it. So I'm going to click on this QR code scanner on my phone, and then I'll scan the QR code, and we'll just send 10 bucks over, and next, and confirm. All right, so I have that going on. And while that's happening, what I want to go ahead and do is create a label for this incoming transaction. So I'm going to go ahead and say adding funds from Strike. And then I want to go ahead and do get next address. And so it generates a brand new address. Now this address still belongs to the same wallet, right? I can generate a billion different addresses from this same wallet. So I have a brand new address, and this is great for privacy. So that way you have a new address for every transaction. So that way somebody can't just watch your one wallet address and see how much Bitcoin you have. They would need to know all your addresses, which could be generated from your XPub, to see how much Bitcoin you have. So sending, each transaction to a different wallet address is good practice to keep your Bitcoin private. And so for the sake of my example, I'm actually going to send another transaction over here, so that way we have 2 transactions in my wallet and 2 UTXO, so that way we can experiment a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and load up Strike again, and I'm going to go ahead and scan my QR code, and this time I'll send $12 just so I get some different amounts in there, and confirm and check. And this is from Strike. Loading more funds from Strike. And so the next time I want to send some Bitcoin to this wallet, I'd send it to this address right here. Or if for whatever reason I don't like this address, I can just go to the next one or the next one or the next one. It doesn't matter. They all wind up in the same wallet. Now let me come over here to transactions, and let's see if we have anything coming in. So right now it doesn't look like we have anything coming in, but I wanted to point out this little slider down here in the bottom right hand corner. So there's been many times where this thing has been slid off. And if you're slid off, then you're disconnected from the internet. Now this is kind of good for security and privacy and things like that. However, if you're trying to see what transactions you have coming in, or you're trying to send Bitcoin, if you're not connected to the internet, well, you're not going to see those transactions, or you're not going to be able to send that Bitcoin. So you want to make sure that this toggle is on, and then you should see some words here that say that it's connecting. And I'm not seeing those words pop up right now, so I'm actually going to go to File and Preferences and Server, and edit my connection. I'm just going to connect to a public server for right now. We'll go ahead and test connection. So for some reason, the Blockstream servers were not working right now, so I connected to a different one. I connected to the electrumbitteroo.net one, and it worked. You can see that I have a yellow slider color right here, so that means I'm connected to a public server versus a blue one, which is when I'm connected to my own node, which is preferred, but for whatever reason, it's not working for me this moment. But that doesn't really matter to me. I'm not doing anything super important right now. But we can see now that under the transactions that I have 2 transactions coming in here. So I have adding funds from Strike, and we can see I have 42,109 Satoshis coming in here. And we can see that there's 1 confirmation if I hover over it. So after 6 confirmations, it's considered like locked in. However, at 1 confirmation, I could still go ahead and send it. I could still do transactions even if there's only 1 confirmation. But we can see I have 2 transactions coming in here. And what I can do from here is hover over it, and you can see there's a little magnifying glass. So if I click there, I can see the transaction. So there's a transaction ID right here, and I could click on here, and it should bring me to mempool.space. Yep, so here I am on mempool.space, and I can see my transaction. So I can see that this is one of the Strike wallets right here, and then they sent this many sats to me right here, and then this amount went back to one of their change addresses. And I have a video on the mempool if you're not familiar with it, link in the description down below. But that's what that's showing us there, and you can see this picture here looks pretty much like the picture here. We have this one coming out, and we have 3. This one has, it's bolder or whatever, versus here it's all the same size, but it's the same concept going on right here. We could look at the detail, which gives us some more information, like the size, the V bytes, our fee amounts, and so on. So it just gives us some general details. Typically, I'll just come over to mempool.space because it's prettier to look at. But yeah, same content in Sparrow and on the mempool. So that's good info to know. We can click this down arrow, and it gives us a couple other options. I don't ever go in here, but yeah, there's this info as well, inputs and outputs, if you want to take a look at those details. And if we click this like airplane looking thing, this is how we could go ahead and send this particular UTXO. But we'll get into UTXOs in just a second. So those are the transactions. I'm going to come back to send. Instead, I want to come on down here we'll go to addresses real quick. So now we can see that I've used these 2 addresses. I have this one adding funds from Strike, this one loading more funds from Strike. This is the amount that's been sent to those addresses. And so again, I want to use a separate one each time, but I could reuse it if I wanted to. Like I could just keep sending Bitcoin to this address right here, and it would go into this address, and it would just increase this value over here. Again, not good privacy practice, but it is something you could do if you wanted to. And then we have UTXOs, and again, this is unspent transaction outputs. So every time you receive Bitcoin, it creates a new UTXO. And basically, that's like a piece of Bitcoin. And you probably want to keep track of your UTXOs, like where they came from and things like that. For example, if you have some that is non-KYC, like you'd want to label that Bitcoin as non-KYC Bitcoin because you got it from like a non-KYC exchange, or somebody sent it to you for work you performed, or a friend gave it to you, or something like that. Some way you got it non-KYC. Then you probably want to keep track of that, because you wouldn't want to be blending your KYC Bitcoin with your non-KYC, because then basically you're telling them, hey, yeah, I own this Bitcoin. This is my Bitcoin. So then it's no longer non-KYC because they'll know who you are. So that's one good thing about labeling your UTXOs, is you can keep stuff separate. When you got it, where you got it from, or if you have ordinals in your wallet, for example, you could label each UTXO as that particular ordinal. That way you can keep them straight. So that's kind of a practical example that might be helpful to you. But I try and keep where I got it from, if it's KYC or not, and things like that. So that's what I include in the labels, just to keep things organized. Now from this UTXO screen, I could go ahead and just send one UTXO. So right here, I'm hovered over this. So I could go ahead and do send selected, 50,542 sats. I could hold down control and select multiple UTXOs. So if I want to send, 5 different UTXOs in one transaction, I could go ahead and select, the 5 that I want to go ahead and send. That way I could keep, say I want to send my KYC UTXOs, I just select the 5 KYC UTXOs and leave my non-KYC UTXOs like in place. I wouldn't touch them, okay? And then I could go ahead and do send selected right here, which is what I'm going to do right now. So that brought us to the send tab. And now I could go ahead and send my Bitcoin to an address. So I plugged in a Bitcoin address that I want to send to right here. Then I need to go ahead and label where I'm sending this to. So sending to personal wallet, or wherever it's going, or whatever label you want to give it. The amount you want to go ahead and send. Right now I have it selected as max. My 2 UTXOs are selected, but I'm going to go ahead and send 70,000 sats instead. So that would be sending 1 full UTXO, and then I'd send part of another UTXO where I'd get change back from that UTXO. So you get to see what that looks like in just a few minutes here. So then I can go ahead and set my fee right here. So I'm going to go to the mempool.space website, and the fees are a little high relative to where they've been. I'm going to go ahead and, just for the sake of this video, I'm probably going to set it at like 15 sats per VByte, so I'm getting that next block or two. So I'll just lower this down to 15 or so. There we go, 15.1 sats per VByte. And again, I have a video on the mempool if you're interested in learning about fees and how to pick what fee to choose and all that type of stuff. But also, Sparrow Wallet does give you some information over here that you could kind of look at. Like here's the mempool size and the target block. So if you want to get in the next 10 blocks or so, then this is the fee that Sparrow recommends you use. If you want to be in the very next block, Sparrow recommends 22 sats per VByte, and so on. So it's 2 different ways to look at it, which block you want to be in next, or you could go ahead and do based off of the amount of sats per VByte you want to spend. So you can see at 23 sats per VByte, this transaction will cost me $1.19, which I'm going to go ahead and lower to the 15. So let's do that again. And so it'll cost me about 80 cents then. And then we can see how the transaction is going to go. So I'm spending 42,109 from my adding funds from UTXO and 50,542 from my non-KYC UTXO. So then I'm going to get 70,000 sent to my personal wallet up here. This amount, 19,253, is going to come back to me as change. So we'll see that in one of those change addresses right here. Let's see, TFN. Let's see if that shows up. TFN, yep. You see that TFN at the end there, 5 TFN. So that's the change wallet it's going to go to. And then I have to pay that fee, the 3,398 fee, to the miners for including my transaction in the block. So there's that fee right there. So you can see exactly how this transaction is going to break down. These 2 UTXOs going out into these 3 routes right here. So then the next step is to go ahead and do create transaction. And there's my transaction ID. I'm going to go ahead and copy that real quick. And then I have an overview, which we were just looking at, or I could look at the detail, which includes some additional information like the size in VBytes and so on. And then we can select our signature, which is the demo wallet, and sig hash. We're going to leave that as the all recommended. And then finalize transaction for signing. And it gives us a few options right here. Show QR code and scan QR code. Honestly, I don't know what these do. I'm sorry to say. I've never used them, and I don't quite understand how they work. I could go ahead and save this transaction. Like maybe I don't want to broadcast it to the blockchain quite yet. I want to save it so I could save it as a partially signed Bitcoin transaction, the PSBT. So you could sign it and save it for later. Or you could go ahead and load a new transaction. So if you have a PSBT already saved somewhere and you want to load it back into Sparrow Wallet, you could go ahead and load that transaction. But when you're ready to get it broadcasted, you go ahead and click on sign. And then you got to type in your password. And it'll go ahead and sign. And then the next thing we want to do is broadcast the transaction. And again, make sure that you're connected to the internet or it's not going to work. And then we see mempool transaction, and there it is, my 70,000 plus the 3,398 for the fee. So now if I come to mempool.space and I look at my transaction number, I can see my transaction in this block right here. There's the fee, as Sparrow Wallet said. There's the fee rate that I agreed to. And here's the transaction. There's the 70,000 going out. Here's the change coming back into that TFN wallet. So everything matches what Sparrow said would happen. So that's all good stuff. If I close out of this transaction then, and I come to my transactions over here, I can see that I have a pending outbound transaction right here. My sending to personal wallet, negative 73,398, which leaves me 19,253 Bitcoin left. If I come to my addresses then, I can see my change address now shows 19,253 right there. UTXOs also show my sending to personal wallet change address. So if I look over here, you can see that 5TFN address. So there's that UTXO. And if I broaden this a little bit, you can see that it labeled it as change. So I know that this is actually change that came back from a previous transaction that I did. And so that covers most of the basic features here in Sparrow Wallet. Again, I'll have some videos on some of the more advanced features like mixing and Paynyms and stuff like that. So more videos to come, and I'll also show you how to connect your Ledger, your Trezor, your ColdCard, and stuff like that as well. So if you're interested in those, be on the lookout for those videos. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, I appreciate likes, comments, subscribes, and or follow me on thebtccourse.com. It's a free website, training. I'll respond to questions over there. I'm just trying to do my part to support Bitcoin. So that's why I put that website together, and I appreciate you checking it out. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day.